Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're tackling something that really impacts everyone's life, even if, the document itself can feel a bit intimidating.
Right. A local government budget.
Exactly. We're diving into the town of Zebulon's fiscal year 2025-2026 budget ordinance. It was approved back in June, effective July 1st. It's basically the town's financial game plan for the year.
Yeah, and our mission today is pretty straightforward. We want to unpack this official document for you. We'll look at where Zebulon's money comes from.
The revenue sources.
Right, and how it's being spent across different departments, different projects. What are the town's big goals reflected in these numbers?
We'll pull out the key takeaways, the important bits, so you can quickly understand what this all means for the town and, well, for you living there.
Cut through the jargon.
Okay, let's start right at the beginning. The foundation. How does Zebulon, according to this budget, actually fund itself? What's the basic framework?
Well, the ordinance sets the core tax rates. First up is the ad valorem tax, that's property tax. For this fiscal year, it's set at 0.5777 per $100 of assessed property value.
Okay, 57.7 cents per $100.
Exactly. And then, consistent with state law, there's also an annual vehicle license tax. It's $30 per vehicle registered in town.
So those are the sort of direct taxes people see, property tax, vehicle tax. But a town's budget needs more than that, right? Where else is the money coming from?
Absolutely. That takes us to the general fund. You can think of the general fund as like the town's main checking account for day-to-day operations.
Okay.
For this fiscal year, FY 25-26, the total expected revenues and the total authorized spending for the general fund are balanced at $29,270,809.
Just over 29.25 million. That's a substantial number. So what are the main streams feeding into that general fund?
If we break down the operating revenues, property taxes are the biggest piece of the pie. No surprise there. They make up about 66.75%.
Two-thirds, basically.
Pretty much. Then the next significant chunk comes from what's called unrestricted intergovernmental sources. That's money from other government entities, like Wake County sales taxes and state utility franchise taxes. That accounts for about 16.22%.
Okay, so property tax and those intergovernmental funds are the heavy hitters.
Definitely.
Now, looking at the specifics, this is where it gets interesting. Are there any particular revenue lines or maybe shifts from previous years that jump out?
Yeah, there are a few interesting points here. You have steady income, like motor vehicle decal fees, expected around $250,000. And Wake County sales tax across different articles brings in over $2.6 million. NC Utilities franchise taxes, another $960,000.
Okay.
But here's what's notable. Interest earnings on the general fund's balance are projected at $700,000. That's a 40% increase.
Wow, 40%. What does that signal? Good investments? Favorable rates?
It could be a mix of things. Savvy financial management by the town, maybe better returns in the market, or maybe just more cash on hand earning interest. It gives them more flexibility, certainly.
Interesting. Anything else?
Yes. Refuse collection fees. They're budgeted at nearly $1.2 million. That's a 56% increase.
56%? That's huge. What's behind that?
It likely points towards making that service more self-sufficient, funded directly by user fees rather than general taxes. Or perhaps it reflects expanded services or higher costs passed on. It's a significant shift.
And I also see a couple of other large items, a $700,000 congressional grant and a fund balance appropriation of over $4.6 million. That means they're using savings, right?
Exactly. That $4.6 million is coming from the town's reserves, its fund balance. It's common to use reserves for one-time expenses, capital projects, or to balance the budget without raising taxes quite as much in a given year. And that congressional grant is earmarked funding, likely for a specific project.
Okay, so that covers the income side pretty well. Let's flip the coin. Where is all that general fund money going? What are the biggest spending areas for Zebulon's day-to-day operations?
Right, the expenditures. The largest shares go to the essential services, as you'd expect. Police gets the biggest allocation, 23% of the general fund operating budget, which is about $5.3 million.
Okay, police first.
Then fire's next at 19%, roughly $4.26 million. And public works operations, think street maintenance, sanitation coordination, general upkeep gets 15%, close to $3.5 million.
So police, fire, public works, that's over half the budget right there.
Easily. Public safety and basic infrastructure maintenance are clearly top priorities. Parks and Recreation also gets a significant slice, 10%, which is about $2.37 million.
Parks and Rec at 10%. Okay. Now, sometimes the smaller line items tell an interesting story, too. If we dig a bit deeper, are there any specific operational costs that kind of reveal other town priorities or maybe unique programs?
Absolutely. You find some really interesting details. For instance, inside the human resources budget, there's $61,000 for employee wellness programs.
Oh, nice. Investing in staff.
And $10,000 for a tuition assistance program. So, yeah, employee development and well-being seem valued. The governing body, that's the town board, has $75,000 budgeted for a PEG media partnership. That usually means supporting public access television or online streaming of meetings, enhancing transparency.
Good for communication.
There's also $20,000 for elections, which they note is paid every other year. Let's see. The stadium department, likely 5-county stadium, has an operating budget around $110,000, covering basics like electricity, water, insurance.
Just keeping the lights on, basically.
Pretty much. The planning department budgets $75,000 for Smart Ride. That's their local transit service.
So investing in public transit.
Seems so. And within the police budget, while the dollar amounts are small, they specifically list $1,785 for a Shop with a Cop program.
Community outreach.
Exactly. And $6,500 for their K-9 unit. Shows specific operational needs. Parks and Rec also has funds for events, $20,000 for Juneteenth, and almost $100,000 for other special events, like the tree lighting, May Day, concerts, movies.
So investing in community life and culture, too.
Definitely. It paints a broader picture than just the big department totals.
Okay, that covers the day-to-day stuff, the operational budget. But what about the really big-ticket items, the major investments that shape the town's future, the capital projects?
Right, the capital project funds. These are separate budgets for major, often multi-year projects. The most prominent one this year is the Fire Station Capital Project Fund.
How much is allocated there?
It's authorized for $17.3 million, all designated for construction.
$17 million for a new fire station. That's a huge project. How are they paying for that?
It's a mix of funding sources, which is smart for a project this size. $5 million is coming from loans. $4.8 million from the Wake County fire tax.
Ah, so county funds contributing.
Yes, and a really substantial piece, $7.5 million, is from a USDA grant, federal money.
Wow, that grant is critical then. Okay, any other major capital projects in this budget?
There's also the Little River Park Capital Project Fund. It's set at $350,000 for this fiscal year.
And what's that for?
That's specifically for Phase 1 master plan implementation for the park. And the budget notes these funds are being transferred directly from the general fund we just talked about.
Okay, so using current operating funds to kickstart that park development. Now, this budget, like most, doesn't just look at the immediate year. It often hints at longer-term plans. What does this document suggest about Zebulon's strategic vision, maybe for infrastructure, public spaces, economic growth?
It definitely outlines some ambitious long-term goals. In transportation, for instance, beyond the $486,000 for street resurfacing in FY26.
Which is funded by the vehicle tag fees and state Powell bill money, right?
Correct. Beyond that annual maintenance, the plan mentions major intersection and road improvements projected to cost millions in the future. Crucially, the notes indicate these would likely require bond referendums or maybe a dedicated property tax increase.
So big road projects are on the horizon, but they'll need specific voter approval or new funding streams.
That seems to be the plan. It signals the need for future investment, but also flags the potential cost to taxpayers.
What about other ways people get around or enjoy the town, like walking, parks?
Well, there's the Walk Zebulon initiative mentioned, planning future paths and connectors. That complements the Smart Ride transit service we saw funded in the operating budget.
So multimodal thinking.
Seems like it. And stormwater management is another big area. There's over $1 million budgeted for a project on W. Horton Street and $335,000 for Little River Park stormwater work in FY26.
Okay.
But similar to the roads, the plan lists many future large stormwater projects that are noted as dependent on passing stormwater bond referendums. Again, signaling major future needs requiring specific funding approval.
Right. This all sounds like a community that's planning for growth. How does that translate into plans for, say, town vehicles, buildings, and the overall economy?
Good question. The fleet and equipment section details replacement cycles for everything from police cars to public works trucks. Interestingly, fire trucks, the really expensive apparatus, are noted as being funded by a dedicated property tax levy.
Ah, so a specific tax just for fire equipment.
Appears so. On the facilities front, there are potential plans mentioned for town hall reorganization or even expansion. with cost estimates ranging from $1.3 million up to $10 million. Similar ideas for the police department, maybe $1.2 million to $3 million.
Big potential projects.
Yeah, and again, the notes flag these as likely needing bonds or lease purchase agreements. So planning, but funding is still a future question. Five-County Stadium is also slated for some specific upgrades: ADA restrooms, better field lights, concession equipment.
Keeping the stadium functional and up to date. And Parks and Rec seems to have a big vision, too. You mentioned Little River Park Phase 1.
Oh, absolutely. The long-range plan is quite extensive. Phase 2 of Little River Park is estimated at $2.7 million. There's talk of expanding Community Park for $500,000, adding new features like a splash pad elsewhere.
Sounds great, but the funding.
Exactly. The document explicitly mentions a potential large park bond referendum of $20 needed for many of these park projects.
$20 million.
Yes. And it estimates this would require about a 5-cent increase in the property tax rate.
Okay, so that puts a potential price tag on those park improvements for residents. That really highlights the trade-offs involved, doesn't it?
It does. It lays out the vision, but also the potential financial impact. How do you balance desirable amenities with tax burdens? That's the core question these long-range plans raise.
And what about boosting the local economy? Any specific strategies outlined?
Yes. The Community and Economic Development, or CED section, focuses heavily on downtown. There are initiatives like facade grants for businesses, improving the streetscape, and grants to help renovate buildings, building upfit grants.
Trying to spruce up downtown.
Right. And remember that $700,000 congressional earmark we saw in the revenues. It's dedicated specifically to downtown development. That's a significant federal investment.
That helps.
What's also very interesting is a proposal to create a municipal service district. This would allow the town to levy an additional property tax, maybe around 6 cents, but only on properties within a specific downtown overlay district.
So businesses and property owners downtown would pay a bit more, specifically to fund improvements right there in that district.
That's the idea. It's a mechanism to create a dedicated funding stream for downtown revitalization, paid for by those who arguably benefit most directly. Very targeted.
Okay, so we have this complex plan: revenues, operating costs, big projects, future visions. Who actually manages all this day to day? Who has the authority to move money around once the budget is approved?
The primary manager is the budget officer. The ordinance gives them specific authority. They can, for instance, reallocate funds within a department, say move money from supplies to travel in the police budget.
Okay.
They can even reallocate funds between departments within the same fund, like moving money from planning to parks within the general fund, but only up to $10,000 without needing extra approval from the town board.
Only up to $10,000 between departments.
Correct. Any reallocations they make under that threshold still have to be reported to the board every month, so there's oversight.
What else can the budget officer do?
They can execute interfund transfers if those transfers were already specifically established and approved within the budget ordinance itself. They also handle hiring personnel and awarding merit pay increases, but that has to be done according to the town's approved salary schedule and personnel policy.
So they have some operational flexibility, but within defined limits. What requires the Board of Commissioners, the elected officials, to step in? Where's their control point?
The board's explicit authorization is needed for several key actions. Any reallocation of funds over that $10,000 threshold between departments requires their vote.
Okay, bigger shifts need approval.
Absolutely. Also, any reallocation between operational spending and capital spending or between different capital projects needs board approval, regardless of the amount.
Yeah.
That's a strategic decision.
Makes sense. Shifting from daily operations to long-term building or vice versa.
Exactly. Most interfund transfers moving money between major funds like the general fund and a capital project fund, unless pre-approved in the ordinance, also require board action. And, crucially, using any unappropriated fund balance dipping into savings that weren't already planned for requires the board's okay.
So the board holds the reins on major financial shifts, strategic changes, and using reserve funds.
That's a good way to put it. It allows the staff, through the budget officer, to manage the day-to-day efficiently, while ensuring the elected officials maintain control over the significant financial policy decisions.
So really, this ordinance isn't just a static document sitting on a shelf. It's the active, living guide for all the town's financial activity throughout the year.
Precisely. It serves as the official financial plan. The budget officer administers it day to day, and the finance department keeps all the records straight, making sure everything aligns with this ordinance and, of course, state laws. It's the rule book.
Wow. Well, that was quite the deep dive into the financial machinery of a town budget. It's really clear when you break it down like this that these documents, even though they seem dense at first, they tell a fascinating story.
They really do. A story about priorities, about investments, about what a community values and where it sees itself going.
Understanding where the money comes from and, just as importantly, where it goes. It's pretty essential if you want to be an informed resident, isn't it?
Absolutely. It gives you direct insight into the services you get: police, fire, parks, roads, and the strategic choices your town is making. You can see the connection between the numbers and your experience living there.
Which brings us to a final thought to leave you with. We've heard about Zebulon's really extensive plans, big investments in infrastructure, public safety, recreation, lots of potential growth.
Ambitious plans.
So, considering all that, and especially the reliance on future bond referendums and potential tax increases that are mentioned throughout this budget document, how do you think a town like Zebulon balances that kind of aggressive growth and development with, maintaining its existing character and keeping things affordable for the people who already live there?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Sure.
Or maybe the multi-million-dollar bond question in this case.
It really is. Balancing progress with preservation and affordability. It's a constant tightrope walk for local governments everywhere, something to think about.